From the Department of Education or DepEd, we have Director Jocelyn D.R. Andaya, Director Laila Ariola, Director Edward Jimenez, Ms. Isabel A. Victorino, and Mr. Roel S. Padernal. We have also invited the principals and schools division offices of some of the pilot schools. From NCR, we have Muzon Elementary School. We have Dr. Cecil G. Carandang, the schools division superintendent of Malabon City SDO, and Dr. Ronald P. Santiago, OIC school principal of Muzon Elementary School, together with Dr. Ernest Joseph Cabrera, Dr. Josefina Pablo, Dr. Eliseo Raimundo, Dr. Hilda Valencia, Ms. Evelyn Calyada, and Ms. Elizabeth C. Aquino. For Luzon, we have Kawayan North Central School. We have Dr. Cherry S. Ramos, the Schools Division Superintendent of Kawayan City SDO, together with Ms. Gemma Bala. From Visayas, we have Tabogon Central Elementary School. The Schools Division Office of Cebu Province is represented by Dr. Gladys Baligtas, the OIC Chief of the School Governance and Operations Division. From Mindanao, we have Siangan Elementary School. From the Schools Division Office, we have Dr. Fernando A. Dones Jr. and Ms. Edna S. Mantilla, the school head of the Siangan Elementary School. From the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, or PIDS, we have Dr. Michael Ralph Abrigo and Mr. Edmar Lingato. From Simeo Inotec, we have Dr. Diosdado M. San Antonio. From the Second Congressional Commission on Education, we have the Executive Director, Dr. Carol Mark R. From the Philippine Normal University, or PNU, we have Dr. Jenny Hoxon and Dr. Alan S. Reyes. From the University of Santo Tomas College of Education, we have the Assistant Dean, Dr. Louis B. Dasas. From the Assessment, Curriculum, and Technology Research Center, or ACTRC, we have Dr. Nona Marlene D. Ferrido and Dr. Pam Robertson, who are both Deputy Directors. From the United Nations Children's Fund, or UNICEF Philippines, we have Dr. Excelsa C. Tongson and Assistant Professor Miriam I. Ugada. From the Coordinating Council of Private Educational Associations, or COCOPEA, we have Dr. Joselito Gutierrez, Dr. Felina P. Espique, Ms. Athena Grace Espino, and Attorney Joshua Alexander Calaguas. Last but not the least, from Rex Education, we have Mr. Levi Espinosa and Mr. John Paul Velasco. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We recognize also the presence of our minority leader, Senator Coco Pimentel. Thank you for coming, sir. Today we'll be conducting a motu proprio hearing on the implementation of the Matatag curriculum. The Matatag curriculum is probably the single most important reform that the Department of Education has undertaken in recent memory. And although during the pandemic we saw a reduction on the competencies with the implementation of the most essential learning competencies, but now it has been formalized through what we call the Matatag curriculum. And today we'll be discussing the features of the Matatag curriculum, the rationale on why we had to reform the curriculum. And we all know curriculum is the most important aspect of education, because I call this as the software that feeds into the brains of our learners, and our learners will be our future workforce and future citizens of this country. So it's all the software that goes into the minds and the thoughts of our learners. So it's a very important facet of education, and we have already reformed it, and now we're in the pilot testing, and we want to also learn from the implementers on the ground on their thoughts and learnings from this new curriculum. At the same time, we will also talk about the challenges that we will be facing in the full implementation of the Matatag curriculum in 2024. Will be the full implementation of the Matatag curriculum, and we want to understand what are the challenges that we are facing and what are the budgetary requirements that we will be needing in order to see a successful implementation of this curriculum. At the same time, we also want to learn the rationale. Why do we why did we have to revise the curriculum? And we invited some experts from the Assessment, Curriculum, and Technology Research Center, who I had an opportunity to interact with them in the past. This actually, the team of Dr. Pam Robertson and Dr. Nona Frido were actually invited here in Congress to, here in Senate to share with us their thoughts on the old curriculum and what are the things that we need to improve on, to reform in order to make our curriculum at par with the present times, and also to fix some of the gaps and the problems that we are encountering. So they're actually, in my understanding, the ACTRC is the sole organization that undertook a curriculum review, and this is in partnership, of course, with the DepEd, and they also made some suggestions that led to this new curriculum. So with that, again, we'll focus on the Matatag curriculum, which is being pilot tested right now, and we'll talk about the implementation as we go along. But before that, we would like to hear an opening remark from our minority leader, and then from our distinguished Senator Padilla.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and magandang hapon po sa lahat. So, from the statement of our chairman, I get the impression that you are now implementing a new curriculum, ito na yung Matatag curriculum, on a pilot basis. Okay, so give us feedback, ano na nangyayari. How long has this been ongoing on a pilot basis? And is it true, is it correct, when the Secretary of Education said she's not an educator, she had no hand in forming the Matatag curriculum? So please confirm that in this hearing. Well, totoo ba yun? That she really let that committee operate autonomously? Yan ang narinig ko sa speech niya mismo. So tell me if I'm wrong, para lang maintindihan ko natin. So I'm here to listen, Mr. Chairman, para ang problema kasi hindi nyo kami ginawang member ng EDCOM 2 eh. So Ayan ang problema. Kaya sa budget hearing, nagugulat kami na na yung may bago ng curriculum, saan galing yung inputs nito. But I know, I'm aware of a certain law, may curriculum committee tayo eh, di ba? Section 3 ba yun? One of the, in that certain law. That's so, sige, then we will get to know how that committee works, because meron din akong bill on at the appropriate levels. Sana turuan na natin ng computers, coding skills ang ating mga. I hope that committee studied that angle, and then I hope marinig sa Matatag curriculum na meron tayong component na gano'n. Sige, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Minority Leader. And 21st century skills is one of the pronounced features of the new curriculum, and we'll ask DepEd later on to give us some explanation and some clarification on that. So, Senator Padilla.
Maraming salamat po, Chairman. A'udhu billahi minasyaitanirrajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillahi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullah. Isang magandang tanghali po sa ating mahal na Chairman, ang amin pong Einstein dito, Senator Neil Gatchalian, at ang amin pong Minority Floor Leader, ang aking pong hinahangaan, Senator Aquilino Pimentel Jr., ang aking Chairman, PDP Laban. At sa inyo pong lahat, ako po ay masyadong interesado dito sa Matatag curriculum na to, sapagkat sa salita pa lang matatag na eh. At gusto ko pong magtanong lang mamaya patungkol, Chairman, sa kung ano po yung sinasabi nito sa kasaysayan, sa paglalahad ng kasaysayan. Dahil napakahalaga po ng kasaysayan para sa ating kabataan na malaman nila kung ano talaga, saan tayo galing, ano ba talaga. Kasi lalo tayong magiging matatag Sabi nga nila, kung alam natin kung ano yung pinagmulan natin. Kaya mamaya po magtatanong po ako, masyado po akong interesado sa pag-uusapan natin ngayon. Maraming salamat po, Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Padilla. And with the permission of my colleagues, we'll start off with ACTRC just to set the tone and context. No? And this organization was assigned to review the old curriculum. They came up with a paper, which I read actually, and they identified some gaps, some weaknesses, some inconsistencies, and and made some recommendations on which this new curriculum was based on. So some of the members of ACTRC are located in Australia, so they will be joining us via Zoom. And then some of the members are not present in Metro Manila now because of some activities outside of Metro Manila. But they're here with us to shed light on their work on the old curriculum, their analysis, and then what made them recommend reforms that were taken into consideration in the new curriculum. So we call on Dr. Frido, who is with us via Zoom.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Senator Bean, Senator Coco, and Senator Robin. We will to make we really didn't prepare for the presentation, but we can always share with you the recommendations and accompanying basis of that. So I requested Dr. Pam Robertson to share the recommendations. And if there are questions or if the gaps that are being addressed may have not been shared completely, then I can give some more details. I hope that will be all right, sir.
Yes, yes. So we will call on Dr. Pam Robertson, who's
Yes.
also a member of the ACTRC, the Assessment Curriculum and Technology Research Center. I think she's located in Australia right now. So she's with us via Zoom. So we recognize Dr. Robertson.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you everyone for allowing us to be here today. It's it gives us a great feeling of honour that you are able to listen to our research findings and that you find them useful. The key finding out of our curriculum review was that teachers were having difficulty implementing the previous curriculum and that students were having difficulty learning it. That led to some problems for Philippine society because students were leaving school without the required skills and knowledge to succeed at further education or in employment. So our findings hinged around what was making it difficult for teachers to deliver the curriculum and for students to learn it. One of the key findings was that there were simply too many learning competencies in the curriculum. For some grade levels, there was up to maybe 3,000 different things that they were expected to learn in a year, and there were often around 1,000. That's a lot of different things to expect a learner to learn and for teachers to have time to give them really good coverage so that the students truly embed an understanding. So one of the recommendations was that the curriculum was streamlined and slimmed down with fewer learning competencies. Another recommendation was that in some areas there were issues with sequencing, which meant that students' knowledge wasn't building step on step as they went through the grades. And working with the Bureau of Curriculum Development, we identified a number of areas where that was the case, and that is one of the things that the new curriculum is hoping to achieve. It's hoping to streamline and refine those so that they're a little easier to implement. Along with revising the sequencing, we found that sometimes the clarity of expression of the curriculum was such that it was difficult for teachers to know exactly what they were supposed to be teaching and to know exactly what skills and knowledge the students needed to gain. So there were some areas where the clarity of expression needed to be improved. Similarly, there was some concerns around the cognitive demand of some of the learning competencies. In the previous basic education curriculum, many of the learning competencies were at a very low level of cognitive demand. It was almost at a memorization level. The current curriculum was the cognitive demand was increased in reaction to that, and it seems that in some areas it went a little too much to the higher order thinking skills and didn't give students time to develop very basic skills well before starting to build on. So that was an issue a little bit around sequencing and a little bit around balancing. Students need to have some time where they're memorising and learning the basics off by heart. They need to have some time where they're practising performing fairly routine tasks before you can really give them those high cognitive demand tasks. So it was a little bit about balancing that. Through adjusting sequencing and clarity of expression and cognitive demand, it's hoped that the sequencing of skills is developed to ensure that students develop the prerequisite skills and knowledge systematically from one grade to the next to the next. We hope that that will improve the proportion of students who enter each topic that they're starting with the relevant prerequisite skills and knowledge. That's really important because we found in our research that teachers were more likely to have trouble having time to teach something if the students entered that grade and that topic without the prerequisite skills and knowledge. So it's really important that students build skills in a really consolidated way systematically as they move through the grades. And where we found that that wasn't happening, it became even more difficult for the teachers to teach the curriculum and for the students to learn it. So with that in mind, the recommendations were that as well as streamlining and paying attention to sequencing of the learning competencies, that there was also some clarity around how those learning competencies are articulated and work together to build over time. I think that summarises our main recommendations. We'd be happy to take any questions that you have or provide any additional information that you need to start your hearing today.
Thank you for the concise presentation. So basically, Dr. Robertson, the main takeaway here is, number one, there are too many competencies in our old curriculum. And because it's too many competencies, our teachers are not teaching all of them, or they do not finish in one school year. They are having problems finishing all the competencies. That leads to number two, our learners are not ready because they're not, all the competencies are not being taught to them. When they jump to the next grade level, they're not ready to take on the subjects in the next grade level. And that also eats up into the time of the teacher in the next grade level. And that, of course, that cascades now, the problem now cascades throughout the whole process. At the same time, Dr. Robertson, I also understand that the cognitive demands is mismatched to the learning. I'm not a technical person on this matter, but I understand that the cognitive demands is mismatched to what the learners can absorb. If that's the right description. And can you elaborate on that part, no? Because that seems to be a very important matter that we need to emphasize, and an important reform that we need to also look at.
Certainly. The cognitive demand issue is a very tricky one because you don't want a curriculum like the curriculum prior to the K to 12, where it's just rote learning and memorization. We know from lots of international studies that that doesn't prepare people well for their life. It doesn't prepare them for higher education, and it doesn't prepare them for the workforce. So we need to make sure that the curriculum has higher order skills in it. And the K to 12 curriculum really made an improvement in that area. However, in some areas it went too far, and it was really trying to get students to do things that were very cognitively demanding before they had cemented those earlier basic skills that they need. So you can't jump into the very high levels of analysis and evaluation and creativity if you don't have the fundamentals. So when we compared we had databases that allowed us to compare the Philippine curriculum to some international comparators. Not a consistent database, but it was available in some of the learning areas. And where we did that, we found that the Philippine curriculum had a greater proportion of learning competencies that were at some of the high cognitive demand levels, but that it had very few, particularly in that sort of routine performance of standard algorithms. So if I give you a mathematics example, it would be that before students had had enough practice at just learning to do basic addition, they were being asked to do worded problems in a very applied and abstract situation where they needed to maybe draw on learning from different areas and pull it together for some very elaborate problem solving. Now, it's very good that students get the opportunity to do that sort of problem solving, but they need to have enough practice in the basics in order to enable them to do that. And so we saw that the Philippine curriculum tended to be a little bit heavier on those very high skills and a little bit lower on those sort of medium level skills. And so what we're asking, or what we were recommending in our report, was that that be balanced a little more. So it was almost like the basic education prior to the K to 12 was too far in low cognitive demand, and the K to 12 in some areas had swung a little bit too far to the other extent, and it was too high. And what we need is just to come back a little so that they still get practice at the higher order skills, which are very important, but that they are taken there gradually and that the sequencing is developed quickly.
Is it right, is it a correct description that the K to 12 curriculum, or the old curriculum, did not emphasize on the foundations in terms of cognitive demand, that it jumped too far ahead of the high-level cognitive levels? So in other words, the fundamentals and the foundations are quite weak for our learners, that it went too far, and that created weak foundations for our learners. Is that an accurate description, Dr. Robertson?
Yes, sir, that's a very accurate description.
Thank you, thank you.
Senator, may I add?
Yes, go ahead, Dr. Frido.
Maybe to give everyone a view of what Dr. Pam was saying about the cognitive demand. When we were reviewing the K-12 curriculum, we used 5 different levels of cognitive demand. And the lowest is that of, memorizing facts and formulas and definitions. And then the second level is performing procedures. And then the third one is communicating understanding. And then the fourth one is analyzing information and advancing arguments. And the highest level is applying concepts and making connections. Now, the K-12 curriculum in general, although not in all subject areas, focus on the fourth and the fifth one. That is analyzing information and applying concepts. And there was little time allotted to performing procedures. And as Dr. Pam shared earlier, it was a reaction to the previous basic education curriculum, or what is called BEC or RBEC. So that was how the learning competencies were written and developed by the different groups of people who worked on the competencies.
I'll just flash a slide, and this was taken from your research. And just to illustrate, this was taken from the ACTRC research. And just to show a visual representation of what you have described here. For grade 3, what you were seeing, level 4 and level 5 is level 4 is analyze and offer arguments, and number 5, apply concepts and make connections beyond the area. And ACTRC compared it with Singapore. So in other words, in grade 3, the higher level cognitive skills in the Philippines is much greater than Singapore. And for the lower level, Singapore is much lower. So in other words, we're demanding more from our grade 3 students beyond what they can absorb, and also beyond the foundations that were given to them prior to grade 3. This is from the research that you have produced. And then it goes also, if you look at for grade 6 and grade 10, you can see the comparison. For grade 10, being more mature, in Singapore they have the level 4 and level 5 are much greater, but in the Philippines the level 5 is much lesser. So I think there's a mismatch within the cognitive demands and also what the learners are expected to absorb. Is that an accurate description, Dr. Frido? Ma'am, you're on mute.
I said that is an accurate description of the cognitive demand that we have for the Philippine curriculum compared to Singapore.
Thank you, thank you. Our minority leader has some questions.
From the presentation, I get the impression that our learners, as they advance in age or in years, they also advance in grade level, although they may not be prepared for that new grade level. Is that what is happening, generally speaking?
Pam, you can answer, but I can go ahead first. Yes, Senator, that is true in general terms. That's why we say that the cognitive demand of our curriculum is high and focuses on what we have said on analyzing information and advancing arguments, and the highest level is on applying concepts and making connections. But if the prerequisite skills for this were gradually developed at the lower grades, then of course our students would be able to to handle. Although, of course, we need to consider that with respect also to the number of competencies in each grade level. Okay, ganun po yun.
Okay, so does our system pass students to the next grade level, although we know that they are not prepared for the subjects of that next grade level?
I'm happy to take that question if that's okay with you. The issue is not one of passing students who shouldn't be passed. The issue is of making sure that the system gradually builds students' skills in a sequential way. I'd like to refer back to some earlier research that Ma'am Marlene and I did in the science curriculum. And if we look at that, even in the selective science-oriented high schools, the pace of the curriculum was too great and the students couldn't keep up. It's not about the students not being good enough or not working hard enough or not being smart enough. It's simply that the task that they're being asked to do is too unmanageable. They can't even have a chance to present, to sit in a classroom where the information is presented because the teachers don't have time to teach it all. So it's not a matter of passing students who shouldn't be passed. It's a matter of a system being established that is unachievable for both the teachers and the learners. I'm sure Ma'am Marlene would like to add to that.
I think that's a sufficient explanation. Yeah.
Thank you for that insight. No? So my next question is, our current curriculum, the one before Matatag, when did we establish this? When did we start observing this or implementing this? Maybe the DepEd can, those who know. When and how did we come up with the pre-Matatag curriculum?
Good afternoon, Senator Win and Senator Pimentel. We started implementing the K-12 curriculum in 2011 when we made mandatory the implementation of kindergarten, and then it was a phased implementation also. There was a study conducted by the University of Melbourne, if I am not mistaken, the findings of which were also incorporated in the making and development of the K-12 program.
But we have our own curriculum committee, di ba? So in the law is right, tama ba ako, Chairman? There's a law. There's a K-12 law, and I remember a particular section there. There is a curriculum committee. Is that committee functioning? What section is that? There is in the law. DepEd, you are not aware of a curriculum committee? Section what of the law? Yeah, Section 6 of that law. There is a curriculum committee, okay, but of course we thank the University of Melbourne and the Australian government for helping us. But, yeah, Curriculum Consultative Committee, Section 6 of RA 10533. I hope that is really activated, no? Kasi yan yung in changes in the curriculum, there must be really extensive consultation. So thank you for our Australian partners, but they have been there since the beginning of the present curriculum, which they now find to be either too ambitious, disconnected with reality, feet are not on the ground, ears are not on the ground, mga ganon. That's the same finding now of the. So what happened? What seems to have happened here, Mr. Chairman? University of Melbourne was already there for when the K-12 curriculum was formalized or finalized. So now we are in this situation now that we find that It's not in passing the learners, which is the problem, it's in the curriculum. So, where did we make the mistake? Because we have already involved the University of Melbourne from the very start. Saan ang pagkukulang natin?
Director Andaya, do you want to respond to that?
I can only answer for curriculum, Senator Pimentel. Like what was discussed by ACTRC, there were some gaps that we saw in the paper itself, but it's another matter altogether in terms of implementing the curriculum, ensuring that the system is in place in order to correctly and accurately implement what's on paper. And so those were the findings, and we're making sure that this time around these findings are really incorporated in the Matatag curriculum.
Literally, Mr. Chairman. So we have the K-12 curriculum, that was the pre-Matatag, and then we have the Matatag curriculum. Ang maganda siguro niyan is side by side natin. Yan, talagang dapat makita natin. Side by side natin, dapat ganyan ang presentation siguro. So, sa length lang, which is the over-ambitious curriculum, kung nasa left side si K-12, makikita natin sobrang haba yan. Dapat si Matatag curriculum na nasa right column natin should be visually shorter na. Yan ang dapat, okay. And then, this time siguro yung mga, when we put the headings on the subject matter, medyo the subject matter title captures what is really to be taught in that. Kasi sabi, one of the observations was the clarity, lack of clarity. So, dapat ganun. So, are we ready with that, Mr. Chairman? Ready na ba sila sa side-by-side presentation of the K-12 with the Matatag? Basic na basic po yan.
Senator, for today po, we weren't able to do that. It's just actually a discussion of the Matatag curriculum. But if the committee can give us time, or within the week, we can send the juxtaposition of the K-12 and the Matatag.
Okay. Who gave the go signal for the Matatag curriculum to be implemented on a pilot basis?
Well, ultimately, sir, it's our secretary that gave the go signal.
So, there must have been a group which presented to the secretary. Okay. What convinced the secretary that the Matatag curriculum is better than the K-12 curriculum?
Sir, we are not privy to that, although our USEC for curriculum and teaching, our boss, I believe, presented this Matatag curriculum to the secretary. In fact, I just know that there were some changes that our good secretary also made, specifically as regards the peace competencies, peace education, because like she said, even in the launch of the curriculum, that it's something very close to her heart. And other details which we were able also to incorporate in the Matatag curriculum.
Is the USEC present here? Wala rin? Secretary is not present, USEC is not present. So, at any rate, tingnan nyo present kayo ng Matatag curriculum, dumaan yan sa, I'm sure dumaan yan sa consultative committee, dumaan yan sa brainstorming ninyo. At the secretary level, she decides to add a competency. Additional yun peace competency. Maganda sa tenga. But it adds a competency. So it goes against now observation number 1. Too many learning competencies. So, kasi kung masyado kayong informal dyan, sa paggagawa ng curriculum, ganyan-ganyan lang, naisip ko ngayon, dagdag nyo. Is that how the way you do it?
Sir, let me somehow give clarity to the issue on the peace education. She just said that there has to be, as relayed to us, there has to be a focus also on peace education. So it wasn't really adding more competencies. It's ensuring that those that are articulated in the curriculum are clearly articulated also as peace competencies and in all learning areas. So not necessarily adding more competencies. It's just surfacing all of them and making sure that these are also articulated.
And the idea came after you have presented the Matatag curriculum.
Yes.
So balik kayo sa drawing board to fix the Matatag curriculum.
Sorry, sir. It wasn't really a matter of fixing again, but ensuring that all those all those that fall under peace competencies are really surfaced in the curriculum. And so we looked at it without necessarily adding more competencies, but rephrasing it such that what are really the important peace competencies that should be included. And so we did some revisions there.
On the subject headings, siguro, on the subject headings,
The competency, sir.
yeah, which is, where is the competency found? Is it in the subject heading? Ano ba tawag niyo doon? Ano ba tawag niyo doon sa mother
We call them,
lines,
sorry, Senator, we call them standards, and from the standards, we break them down into content and then performance. So it's found in the content also, but at the same time in the competency.
Where is the competency found in the Matatag curriculum? Expressed where? In the subject matter?
Yes, content.
So when you heard the peace competency, you revised your, at least yung mga subject matter title.
Some of them, but many are actually already present.
Okay, so it's not adding a competency, although you use the word peace competencies. Okay. So Mr. Chairman, I'll just await the report on what has been happening on the ground sa pilot testing. Ilan ba to? In how many schools bang approach natin? How many schools are we testing it?
Good afternoon, sir. Actually, we're piloting the Matatag curriculum in 35 schools. These are found in 7 regions.
Since when?
We started po last September 25.
Itong school year lang na ito.
Just started actually. More or less, it's
okay,
4
so
weeks.
the rest of the country, they follow the K-12 curriculum, the 35 schools,
Yes.
the Matatag curriculum. Okay, so how will we compare now the results? How will we compare after one grading period, after one school year? When and how?
We tend to look at it, sir, after the end of the school year.
And we'll give them an exam?
Yeah, and it's going to be the Bureau of Education Assessment that's going to undertake that, sir.
So there will be siguro 35 schools with all the students will be given an exam, and then ang control natin would be some other selected schools na under the K-12,
Yes,
and then you will compare kung saan mas magaling in math. Ano ba yung, what will we measure? What will we compare? Math, reading, math skills, reading skills, ano ba? Science knowledge.
Actually, I cannot speak so much about what's going to be tested, but certainly it's not going to be a comparison, particularly the performance of our learners from that of the Matatag and that of the K-12.
It will be a comparison.
It's not going to be a comparison, certainly.
So ano kaya to? So anyway, somebody explain how the pilot testing will be put to good use. Sige, explain to us.
Director Andaya, I'm looking at your presentation. You want to show the minority leader. There's a reduction in the number of competency. I think this is what he's pointing at, and also the breakdown of the components of the peace education. It's in page 13 and page 16.
Sir?
We'll flash it on the screen. This is from your presentation.
May I answer first
Yes, and then
Senator Pimentel's question? What's the purpose of the pilot implementation? It's not to actually compare K-12 and Matatag curriculum. The purpose of the pilot is now to determine the support needed by our teachers and school leaders to effectively implement the Matatag curriculum and to identify the challenges, issues, or gaps that may arise in order to address them appropriately and in the preparation for the implementation and rollout in 2024. So that even from the get-go, we already know what are some of the problems and issues that we will encounter, and we can actually do something about it before it's going to be implemented nationwide. So that's the purpose of the pilot.
So in effect, it has already been decided that the curriculum will now be changed. It's going to be the Matatag curriculum. Except that, I do not know, parang nagrenda kayo. Outside of the 35 schools, you will let them suffer learning from the old curriculum. Ganun ang ginagawa nyo eh. Because aralin nyo muna sa 35, ano bang problema in implementing the Matatag curriculum. Is that really necessary na may pilot sa 35? I mean, what's the point? Ano yun? Malalaman nyo naman sa nationwide, ano problem if you implement it nationwide? What's wrong?
Senator, at least now with the results of the, in terms of looking into the entire program, we want to make sure that those challenges that we were able to encounter in the implementation of K-12, okay, will be able, we drew lessons from that, but at the same time also drawing lessons for the pilot implementation. Because it's not going to be assessed at the end only of the school year. So there will be teams that will be looking into these schools, and therefore they will not be parang napabayaan or papabayaan namin in terms of implementing this, but ensuring that they have the necessary support so that this can be implemented also successfully. Yun po yung intent po ng pilot implementation. And besides, it's good also to take a look at what works best in some areas and what are the things that we need to improve on, because this is a snapshot of, for instance, those schools implementing in the far-flung areas and those implementing in the urban areas.
Director, do you want to explain this slide? Because this is actually a very important slide. No?
Yes, sir. Thank you. The findings of the ACTRC necessitated really looking into the most essential learning competencies. And that's why when we did the revision, we made sure, and this isn't just born by the findings of ACRC in terms of doing a documentary analysis, but it's really doing FGDs or focus group discussions with our teachers and even our supervisors. And this is an overwhelming finding and that we needed to address. And that's why we looked at the current curriculum, which is the K-12 curriculum, and we said that there are those that are nice to know competencies, nice to have competencies versus the must to know competencies. And so we were able to eliminate those and made sure that those that are essential in terms of moving on to the next quarter, semester, or grade level, those are what we placed here. And that's why from a total of 11,738, it became just 3,664 without watering down, Senator Pimentel, what the competencies, what are the essential competencies that are needed by our learners, and so that the teachers are afforded more time to really teach said competency.
we were talking on the sidelines of with Senator Pimentel. Actually, I share this same feeling, and I voiced this out in a few of my interviews that this is long overdue. And just imagine the competencies, 70% reduction in competencies. And I'll show another slide that I picked up from ECTRC. This is a very important slide. This is slide 2. This is from the research of Dr. Robertson and Dr. Frido. This is, yeah, so that we'll have appreciation. Because of the because of the overcrowding and the number of competencies that we have in our old curriculum, just look at the number of teachers who can finish the entire competencies. No? In grade 3, only 24%. In grade 6, it's only 12%. Just imagine, only 12% of our teachers can finish the entire curriculum based on the competencies because of the sheer number of competencies that are pushed to them and mandated of them to teach. And later on, we can hear from our teachers. We invited the implementers to share with us their thoughts on the old and the new curriculum later on. And then in the next slide, again, I got this from ACTRC, because teachers are not teaching the entire curriculum, therefore their learners are not ready, or they're not ready for the next level. And if you look at grade 6, 59% are not ready. Grade 4, 20%, but it goes, the higher the grade, the more not ready the students are, because the teachers are not teaching the entire number of competencies. And that's why, in my opinion, my personal opinion, this is already an indication that we need to drastically change the curriculum and move fast. No? That's why, in my opinion, this new curriculum should have been implemented yesterday. No? But obviously, I understand from them that there are some logistical and practical reasons why they have to do pilot testing. No? And that's why we're on the sidelines, me and Senator Pimentel were saying that paano naman yung mga non-pilot schools? No? They'll be experiencing this, but the pilot schools, the 35, will obviously benefit from the new curriculum. But let's ask DepEd to explain to us the rationale why the delay of 1 year. No? I understand it's logistical, but let's hear from DepEd why. How come there's a pilot school implementation, and then after that a 3-year phased implementation? It's not a 1 year, 1 year all level implementation, a 3-year phased implementation. So that's the rollout plan of DepEd. So give us a rationale on why that is the decision to implement the new curriculum.
Sir, we launched the curriculum in August of this year. It will take us months also to produce the necessary textbooks and learning resources. Like I said, we were able to learn also from our experience in the implementation of K-12. And one of those challenges was actually ensuring that textbooks are given to are afforded our learners, and so that gives us time as well to do the necessary procurement activities, so that by the beginning of next school year, our learners have those resources. Number 2, we will have to train and retrain our teachers, so that this is a new curriculum. There are capacity building activities that needed to be done. Even, of course, in terms of assessment activities. And so these are the important considerations also in implementing this for next school year.
do you have a budgetary estimate already on how much do we need to spend in order to prepare for the phase-in implementation? I'll flash on the screen slide 6, the phased implementation. Starting 2024 and then 4 years thereafter, there will be a phased-in implementation. My first question is, how come it's kinder, grade 1, grade 4, grade 3? What is the reason behind the selection of these grades? And then number 2, what type of preparation and how much budget do we need in order to make sure that by 2024, all of these grade levels have the right learning materials, the right curriculum guides, and all of the training necessary to successfully implement the new curriculum?
Okay. Sir, for the first question, why is it a phased implementation? If we take a look at the grade levels, we see that these are key stages. So key stage 1 is from kinder to grade 3, and then beginning of key stage 2 is 4. Beginning of key stage 3 is 7, and beginning of key stage 4 is 11. And as we looked at the skills that are necessary for them to be able to master the needed competencies and make sure that the prerequisites are able to be learned, then they have to do a phased implementation. So that when for instance, our grade 4 students already reached the key stage standard, okay, because there are key stage standards that need to be met. And so they already have the prerequisite necessary in order for them to move on to the next grade level. That's why it has to be a phased implementation because there are prerequisite skills. Now, in terms of preparation, capacity building, that has already been ironed out starting this school year. Towards the tail end of this year, November, there will be already capacity building activities for our teachers, culminating in summer, during which our teachers will be also capacitated, specifically those kinder, grade 1, grade 4, grade 7 teachers. In terms of procurement for the textbooks, I believe we have already started, and there has been fund allotted for that purpose. And there are actually activities also as regards national assessments and classroom assessments that need also to be, there are already plans in place for all of those. So we're looking at the entire system and making sure that the system will work and is working as well when we finally roll it out. So that by July of next year, ready na po lahat in time for our...
The reason for picking this time frame is really for teacher training, learning materials, all the logistical requirements that we need to prepare for. And how much are you looking at? Are we going to replace all the current textbooks? So if that's the case, we should be preparing to procure or to print those textbooks already.
Yes po,
Because if we're talking about 2024, that's probably around when? August?
August,
School
yes.
year? So we're talking about a year, less than a year from now.
Yes po, and we have already started with the pre-procurement activities.
Okay.
By January, I believe there's already a procurement that will happen for our textbooks.
Mr. Chairman, this explains what I noticed to be the tenfold increase in the budget for printing for books and materials. 1 billion, if I remember correctly, 1 billion, and then sa NEP 10 billion yata na rin naman yan.
Is that the reason why there's an increase in acquisition of books? This is in preparation for the new curriculum. Okay, all right. And one grade level on the average is what? 3 million students, more or less. So we're talking about for 2024, 12 more or less, 10 to 12 million new books.
Senator Win, our current textbooks will serve as our reference materials or the reference materials also of our teachers, because not all competencies naman are new, because there are enduring competencies, of course, and that's why the textbooks, the current textbooks that we're using now might also be used, but not in the way that it has been articulated in the curriculum. So it's now up to the teacher if he or she will use that, as long as it's available in the school, and at the same time also other resources in the internet that they might find useful. We also have resources in our portal that the teachers can make use of.
Do you want to proceed with your presentation? I know you prepared a presentation. Is that correct? Yeah, because that will give us more information on what changes you made and what is the rationale for the change in curriculum. Edie Carroll, you wanna say something?
I guess, Senator Win, we have other comments on the revised K-10 curriculum, but we just wanted to reiterate our questions earlier shared with DepEd in relation to the textbooks. In our conversations with DepEd, in our ongoing partnership with them, the explanation to us is that for the production of textbooks, you need 6 months to produce it, 3 months to print it, and 3 months to deliver it, to ship. This is optimistic. Kung nasa pre-procurement tayo, it means once awarded, then you begin the 6 months, and then the 3 months, and then the 3 months. Using those timelines, we will not have textbooks by July. And so I guess yung question namin before is, and the response from DepEd before, was that may self-learning modules naman or may ibang materials. And so our question is, do we have budget to make those materials available, printed? Or are we going to release it digitally and then request and rely on the teachers to handle the printing? In our analysis also of the material, of the information submitted to us by the DepEd Bureau of Learning Resources as of August 2023, yung may textbooks lang talaga to fall back on in the current curriculum of K-12 is really yung kompleto, grade 5 and grade 6, and a sprinkling of some subjects in grade 4, 8, 9, and 10. So I guess our real question is, we welcome, of course, the revision of the curriculum to make sure it is decongested. But in our consultations with teachers, sabi nila, please let's not start kung wala kaming training at wala kaming gamit at walang gamit yung mga bata. And so our question really is, how do we make sure that happens? We have a runway of 1 year, this pilot. We've asked the question before on what are the milestones that we are looking at to assess preparedness, because you will need to make decisions before July that will then trigger the full implementation of K147. What are the milestones we are looking at? Ano yung binabantayan natin? Ano yung indicator na handa tayo at ano yung indicator na hindi? At sa usapin pa lamang ng textbooks na malinaw na hindi sapat at hindi in time darating yan sa mga bata, ano yung plan B natin? Kasi ngayon pa lang malinaw na plan B will be our plan A. And is that reflected in the 2024 GAA?
We'll drill down on the textbooks later on. No? That's an important point because, of course, it's very difficult to learn and to teach without any textbooks. No? So, and what our minority leader pointed out, we already allocated funds. No? So, the next question is, can we spend it and deliver it on time? On time for the school opening in 2024. So we'll drill down on that later on, but we'll allow DepEd to present the Matatag curriculum, and so that we can also make some comments on this curriculum. You can go ahead, Director Andaya.
Thank you, sir. Sorry, next slide, please. When we adopted the K-12 program via RA 10533, our aim was to enhance the Philippine basic education system by strengthening the curriculum and increasing the number of years of basic education from 10 years to 12 years. Prior to the implementation of K-12, the Philippines had been one of only 3 remaining countries in the world, the other 2 being Djibouti and Angola, to have 10 years of basic education. The phased implementation of K-12 was adopted starting in 2011-2012 and was progressively implemented in the succeeding years. In 2017-2018, our grade 6 and 12 learners became the first cohort of elementary and senior high graduates. This school year 23-24, we will have our first batch of graduates who will have fully gone through the entire gamut of the K-12 program. Next slide, please. And so after several years of implementing the curriculum, it is now for revision, and like what ACTRC mentioned, these were the findings of when they did the review, that it's congested, there's misplaced prerequisite learning competencies, and there's an imbalance of cognitive demand. And so next slide, please. This is how we went through the curriculum revision process. It took us about 2 years to revise the curriculum, from the development of shaping papers and curriculum guides and validation of these documents to revision and public review and eventually finalization of these documents. The public review is something new that the VP and Secretary introduced because this is the first time that we did that. We opened it up to the public for their comments and suggestions. And we share this in our website, and I believe that many of our stakeholders were able to comment on the curriculum. We have also listened, next slide, to several voices and perspectives, and we showed our commitment to engage our stakeholders in making decisions crucial to the future of every Filipino learners. We have engaged a sizable number of collaborators and contributors, not just from the DepEd, but also from the academe and higher education institutions and other external stakeholders and industry leaders. We have also engaged the biggest private school associations such as Cocopea, CEAP, AXPU, PACU, and even our international experts. And then next slide. After going through the revision process, we have subjected to the curriculum to a public review, and there were around 4,483 respondents. Even EDCOM too was able to submit their feedback, share their feedback with us. And there were many, of course, there were some revisions that we made because of the feedback coming from several institutions and organizations. Our revision was guided by several factors, which are found in the next slide, including the insights gleaned from the curriculum review findings, the international large-scale assessment results, and international benchmarks such as Singapore, US, Australia, and alignment with the overarching goals outlined in the Matatag education agenda. And we also, in the revision, we also followed some basic learning principles. Number 1, learning is not possible in an overcrowded curriculum. It can be a stressor to students and teachers and even serve as an impediment to learning. Number 2, learning competencies must be age appropriate. When adults expect young children to master skills for which the necessary maturity has not yet been formed, we are impairing healthy brain development by excessively stressing the child. If pushed and rushed, a child's desire to learn will be hampered and his or her learning spirit crippled. The third learning principle is that learning starts from what students already know and can do. And that is one of the things that our partners, the ACTRC, mentioned, that some of the students are not prepared to tackle a new competency or skill. And then the last principle is learning involves a progression where more complex skills are built on foundational skills. And so much learning tends to follow an expected path or progression, where more complex skills are built on foundational skills. Next slide, please. And so the main features, next slide, are of the Matatag curriculum are the following. Number one, there's a focus on foundational skills such as literacy and numeracy skills, especially in K to 3. Number two, it's a decongested curriculum. We have significantly reduced the number of learning competencies. A balance of cognitive demand. As the student progresses to the next grade level, there's a shift from the focus on low levels to higher order thinking skills. And then clearer articulation of 21st century skills such as information, media, and technology skills, learning innovation skills, communication skills, and life and career skills. And then reduced learning areas for Key Stage 1 from grades 1 to 3, and intensified values education and strengthened peace education. There's an intensification of values formation of learners through GMRC and values education in adherence to RA 11476 and integration of peace concepts in the curriculum. And we made sure that our curriculum is on a par with international standards. Next slide. So for the congestion of the curriculum, which necessitated streamlining its intent and content, for grade 1, from 7 learning areas, it's now only 5 learning areas that focus on strengthening literacy and numeracy. So from 7 po, it's already 5 because we want to make sure that the foundational skills are attained by our learners. And so the creation of a language curriculum gives more emphasis to the development of oral language skills for communication in the learner's first language, which is essential in developing foundational skills for literacy and learning and other content areas. Reading and literacy equips learners with strong foundation in reading skills, comprehension, and critical thinking, and concurrently fosters a love for reading and helps learners develop the necessary skills to become confident and proficient readers. And math remains to be a significant part of the Matatag curriculum. We also introduced the new learning area called Makabansa that seamlessly weaves vital content and skills from civics, arts and culture, history, and physical education and health. And then the fifth curriculum content, the fifth subject, which is GMRC or Good Manners and Right Conduct, puts more emphasis on engaging various relational dynamics in a changing world and to ensure inclusivity amongst our learners. In sum, we reduced the learning areas with only 5 for grades 1 and 2 and 6 for grade 3. Next slide, please. Sorry.
Just to put everyone on the same. This is the first slide. This is for grade 1, correct?
Yes, grades 1 and 2, sorry.
For Key Stage 1.
For grade 3, which is part of Key Stage 1, there's an additional subject which is science. So
All
science
right.
starts in grade 3.
And just to educate us, for example, for grade 1 mathematics, how many competencies are there? Just give us in the current and in the new.
Sorry. It's in the other, there's a slide, decongested curriculum. It's there po. Yeah. Per grade level, we have for per grade level.
It's the competencies for the entire. So for example, mathematics, that's divided into different grade levels,
Yes,
correct?
6 grade levels.
6 grade levels. So that 740 is divided by, it's spread across 6 grade levels.
Correct,
So that's just
Senator.
to give everyone
Yes.
an idea on how competencies are distributed. But it really depends also on the grade level, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not
evenly
distributed across grade levels.
Yung slide number 11 po natin, is grade 1. Yung ipaki-focus po yung yan. That's for grade 1.
Grades 1 and 2, sir.
Grades 1 and 2. Pero it's in the details eh. Sabi ko nga kay chairman namin, so those are the mother categories. We have reduced them from 7 to 5, but we may just have transferred the components palipat. So for example, sige, in the current curriculum mathematics for grades 1 and 2, what are the competencies that we are trying to teach our learners? Sige, in the current curriculum mathematics.
Basic po ito, learning from, for instance, in grade 1, they're able to count from 1 to 100, if I'm not mistaken.
Kasi ma'am, ganito eh. Sa isang slide ninyo, sa current curriculum ninyo, ang competencies na mathematics 740. Sinabi nyo, spread over how many grade levels yan? 7 or 6? 6, i-divide natin, di 120, more or less, competencies. Ang gusto nyo ituro sa isang grade level? Is that the correct way of looking at it?
The average number of competencies in the new curriculum is between 90 to 120, if I am not mistaken, yes.
In the Matatag?
In the Matatag, opo.
For one grade level?
For one grade level.
Kaya can we take a look at that one? Ano yung 90 to 100 na yun? And then, sa old curriculum, ilan? More or less.
Do we have a distribution per grade level so
Yes.
that ma-visualize?
Para lang, nagsasampling din po tayo just to test the theory behind this decongested curriculum.
Opo. For instance po, if we talk about competency, in grade 1, for instance, dapat alam na nila yung addition of numbers which sums up to 100. Yan po yung tinuturo. And
That's
then,
how we describe the competency.
Yes. Opo,
Okay.
opo, opo.
So grade 1 students must be able to add how many addends yun? 2 numbers up to 100?
Two.
Must
Opo.
be able to add 2 numbers up to 100. Isa yan, ganyan yung
Yes.
pagsukat.
Opo,
Okay, that's how we
and
approach
then
it.
another competency is to measure the length of an object
Mm.
and the distance between two objects.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
examples po yan.
So naka 120 descriptors kayo dyan. That's under the Matatag. Math grade
Matatag.
1 Matatag. In the K to 12, math grade 1, how many? Sa tingin ko dapat parehas lang yan. I don't think ginalaw niyo yan. Sa iba tayo titingin siguro, Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman, mas...
Just like...
ginalaw nga pala nila. Kasi para makita natin yung yung difference.
Opo. Ano lang po, although I do not have the figures right now in PowerPoint presentation and in the tawag dito, in the documents I have, the decongestion did not just mean deleting some of the competencies, because in the K to 12 curriculum, there are competencies that overlap, that are repetitive, and so those were also some of the reasons why from, let's say, for instance, 250 competencies in a particular grade level, it became 90. It wasn't just that, tawag dito, we just deleted those that are nice to know, but that repetitions po siya and overlaps. And that's why when we looked at not just the math curriculum actually, but the entire curriculum, we said that, of course, for instance, science, we cannot do this particular competency unless it's found in the math. It's tackled in math. And so there was some sort of an horizontal across subject areas and vertical articulation that needed to be done as well, so that we'll be able to know what's really the essential. So ganun po yung explanation, sir, as to why we were able to, it's not just a hodgepodge of parang, sige, ilagay natin yan, isiksik natin. It's not possible po because, like I said, we just wanted the essential competencies. So every competency that we place there, we made sure that it's really what's needed by our learners. And there are criteria that we follow in order to say that it is an essential competency.
So maganda ngayon. I think I appreciate this. Halos 8,000 competencies ang naalis. But Why did this happen in the first place? Yun ang gusto ko tanongin. Why yung overlapping? For example, how sure are we that wala ring overlapping dito sa 3,600 na iwan? What level of care did you now implement which was not observed in the past?
I do not, I apologize, Mr. Senator, but I would not wish to dwell on what happened in the making or development of the K-12, but this I can assure you po as the Director of the Bureau of Curriculum Development that the process that we observed, it took us 2 years actually to do this, the revision itself. The review took us 1.5 years to do it, but for the revision, we made sure that there are no overlaps and that they are not repetitive. Why am I saying that I am sure about it? It's because we did something that we did not do before, which is nilatag namin yung buo, hindi lang math for instance, kundi lahat ng learning area, subjects, nilatag po namin lahat, tinitingnan po bawat isa. This is the competency here. Can we place it? Is this a prerequisite to another competency in another subject or learning area? That's what we did po. So the level of care that we placed there was very important as well to us. And so we had to go back to the drawing board if there were some, if the cognitive demand is high in a particular level and say, okay, hindi niya kaya yan kasi hindi pa niya naturo dito. And to our surprise, Mr. Senator, we found out that there are some competencies, for instance, in grade 7 that were supposed to be taught already in grade 6 or grade 5 but weren't taught. And so we had to go back to that and say, oh, dito muna bago natin lagay. So in terms of level of care, I am very confident about how we did that validation of the competencies.
Mr. Chairman, this will not be your last hearing on this, di ba? In the next hearing siguro, let us test the Matatag curriculum by really now scrutinizing, magkuha tayo ng isang subject dyan, tingnan natin. Maybe even the science, kasi science did not compress, it actually expanded. Tingnan natin anong ginawa nila dyan. Siguro yun na, yung gusto ko yung mga description on what is that competency that you expect. You expect that of the graduate of that level, no? So at the end of the school year, that person, that learner must know how to.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hanggang 120.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so
Okay. And then at a certain key stage, for instance, if they finish grade 3, these are the standards that they have met already.
how many days in a school year?
For this school year, it's 100.
In a normal school year, in an expected school year,
188 to 200.
188, and then we attempt to teach them 120 competencies
Yeah.
in 180 days. So siguro i-take into account din natin yan, Mr. Chairman, kasi hindi lang naman yan pahapyaw dapat may drills din dapat. Well, but this is very interesting, so I'm glad I attended this hearing, Mr. Chairman, at may nakikita tayong. And congratulations, I think it took guts to cut down 11,700 to 3,600. I mean, medyo, siyempre meron din kayong pagdududa noon, na kung sa tanggalin natin ito, baka but, so let's test it. We have to test it kami. Outsiders must test it para objective po kami.
We
May I
have, to
say-
we have to remind everyone that the minority leader is a mathematics major, aside from being a bar top notcher. Kaya pag hihimayin niya talaga yan. But the minority leader made a good point to help us understand what was the process in order to reach this new 3,664 competencies, and how the process that you undertook has now become more cohesive. Because I understand earlier that the subjects were in silos. That's what I understand, loosely. But now, because nilatag na, it's more cohesive, and it will build on each other. So in a layman, we're not educators, no, but in a layman, in next hearing, just demonstrate to us that cohesiveness in terms of subject, no? So that we will truly appreciate the reforms under the Matatag curriculum. We'll call on Dr. Frida first before we go back to Director Joyce.
Yes, thank you, Senator. Because we are talking about the learning competencies, I had the opportunity towards the end of the revisions being done by the Bureau to sit together with the science specialist, because I'm a science major, for 3 weeks. Not really to write, but to give some suggestions together with other Australian consultants. And the way that was done was that it was not simply reducing the number of learning competencies, but it was also focusing on the preciseness of the language of the learning competency. And as has been said, nilatag, kagaya din ng iba, like science vis-a-vis math, it was also made sure that the exact position in the learning continuum was considered. Also, another consideration that I observed was that the learning competencies had a good balance of knowledge and understanding, that's content, skills, and also values and attitudes, plus examples of applications such that students will function as good citizens of the country and of the world. So that was the lens through which the learning competencies were revised. Now, Senator Pimentel said that science had an increase because in the previous K-12 curriculum, teachers also had difficulty unpacking some learning competencies that were stated in such a way that they have to determine what are the prerequisite skills that are really needed here. So they have to go, so many grade levels way back. So those are some of the considerations done by the science team. I am not privy to the other learning areas. So I hope that helps. Thank you.
With the permission of Senator Pimentel, for the next hearing, we'll request DepEd to demonstrate to us the cohesiveness of the subject on mathematics and science. We'll just choose those two subjects so that we'll understand how one grade level's subject and competencies is cohesively related to the next grade level and so on. I think that's what Dr. Frido mentioned earlier, especially on science. Now I appreciate that science is further unpacked. That's why the competencies expanded. But let's test it so that we will truly appreciate the new curriculum. So continue, Director Andaya, you're on the Makabansa. And this Makabansa, I understand, is a new subject. Yeah, we can continue with that.
Yeah, we'll be happy to do that presentation in the next hearing po, Senator. And then to continue, for Makabansa, which is a new subject, layunin nito na mapaunlad ng mga mag-aaralang pag-unawa sa sarili at kultural na kamalayan, kasanayan upang maging malusog at malikhain at may kakayahang makipag-ugnayan sa kapwa at pamayanan. This connects and reinforces grades 4 to 10, Araling Panlipunan, as learners examine and understand nationalism in the context of the national narratives, Southeast Asia context, and global dynamics and processes in Araling Panlipunan. Next slide. As we've mentioned several times already, we have decongested the curriculum by 70%, which supports our assertion and focus on the essential skills of literacy and numeracy. Next slide. We also focus as one of the features of the Matatag curriculum, 21st century skills, with specific examples that manifest in various learning areas. So we recognize the importance of reinforcing the 21st century skills of our Filipino learners, aiming to equip them beyond just the traditional learning domains. The focus is on developing competencies that are vital in today's digital and global world. And so these include digital literacy, critical thinking and problem solving, future orientation and thinking, and resilience and adversity management. We want to ensure that our learners are not only knowledgeable but also adaptable, forward-thinking, resilient, and well-equipped for the 21st century. Next slide. We have the values education. Actually, this is GMRC and values education. The main author of this law is, of course, Senator Win. We wanted to inculcate the right values across all levels from kindergarten to grade 10. We have done this by introducing GMRC in kinder to grade 6 and values education in grade 7 to 10. The focus here is on nurturing the learners' essential socio-emotional skills such as empathy and resilience, contributing to their emotional well-being and interpersonal relationships, and ultimately building a strong character. And the next slide is another feature, which is on peace education. Okay, so it is a strengthened peace education in the curriculum where learners are provided with a set of values, attitudes, and ways of life that stand against violence and prevent conflicts by tackling the root causes to solve problems through principled dialogue and negotiation among individuals, groups, and nations. And then, next slide. These are our plans. Pilot implementation is ongoing. And then we are starting with capacity building by November. And then the first quarter of next school year culminating in the capacity building of our teachers. It's not just the teachers that we are capacitating, but also school heads. They need to understand the changes that are being made in the curriculum. At the same time, our supervisors will be able to provide the technical assistance to the schools. And learning resources. We are also revising the senior high school. In fact, we've made several consultations already with academia, with different sectors and industries, so that these inputs will be included in the review of the curriculum and eventually the revision of the curriculum. And we have engaged several stakeholders in this endeavor. Next slide. So, as already discussed, there's a phased implementation of the Matatag curriculum starting in school year 2024-2025 and ending in 2027-2028 for grade 10. This does not, of course, include the senior high school phased implementation also. Next slide, please. Okay, so overall, we want our learners to be prepared with strong literacy and numeracy foundation, equipped with 21st century skills. They are nationalistic and global, and they are ready to succeed in life. Senator Win, I believe that this is the last slide of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We can move on to, we've invited some pilot schools here to share with us their experiences on the pilot implementation. With us are members of the Malabon City Elementary School, kapitbahay namin sa Valenzuela. So we're here joined by Dr. Cecile Carandang. So, ma'am, you can share with us your thoughts on the new curriculum. What are your suggestions? What are the challenges that you faced so far? I know we're only, what, 2 months? 2 months pa lang. into the-
For weeks po.
Less than a month, no? So it's probably too early, but just initial thoughts lang, no, on the implementation. You're a professional teacher, your group is a professional, are composed of professional educators, so I'm sure you have a feel already of this new curriculum. And just share with us and some suggestions that we can take into consideration so that we can improve and make this successful.
Honorable Chair, Senator Vin Gatchalian, a blessed afternoon, and to all of us gathered here. First, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the invitation given to us to be present here in our Senate hearing for the Matatag curriculum. We can say that we have been very blessed to be chosen as the pilot implementer. Ito po ay napakalaking challenge, pero tinitingnan namin ito sa napakalaking blessings. Dahil sabi nga po ni Director Andaya na ang anumang lessons na makikita during the pilot implementation ay malaki ang may tutulong sa full implementation nito by next year. Sa Malabon po, we are the lone pilot implementer division. We have 5 schools. And among those schools, during the collaborative expertise we have during Fridays, nakita po namin na mas iba ang approach at mas matatag talaga ang mangyayari sa Matatag curriculum. Kung comparison po yung pag-uusapan pagdating sa K-12 or from the other curriculum before, ang maganda po kasi ngayon sa Matatag curriculum, we have the collaborative expertise. Natutunan namin yon during the National Learning Camp introduced by DepEd na dati ang mga guro, bibigyan sila ng competency, mag-prepare sila ng lesson plans, and lahat ng mga gagawing activity sheets, sila yung gagawa noon. But this time, for the DepEd, provided po ito ng DepEd Central Office. So meron ng lesson exemplar, mayroong trainings na ibinigay sa mga teachers, at ang maganda doon, nagkakaroon ng collaborative expertise na bago ituro yung lesson for the next week and not yung previous week, nagkaroon ng pag-uusap yung mga guro ng halimbawa, lahat ng grade 1 teachers. So yung pag-aaralan pa lang next week, pinag-uusapan na nila. So nagkakaroon na sila ng feedbacking dahil nabigyan na sila ng lesson exemplar, ng mga activity sheets, mas nagiging madali. Sa halip na yung isang teacher, siya na ang bahala sa lahat ng pagtuturo niya. Ngayon, nagiging collaborative, nagtutulong-tulong na sila. So kung ano nangyari nung last week, ano yung naging problema, pinag-uusapan nila yon. Kung may mga lessons or may mga activity sheets na hindi natapos, paano ang gagawin nilang approach. At ang maganda rin po noon, yung lahat ng kung ano ang naging best practice ng isang teacher or ng iba pang teachers, na-highlight yun during the collaborative expertise. At hindi lang po yun yung napakagandang feature ng Matatag curriculum. Yung presence ng technical assistance, yung napakalaking suporta ng pinibigay ng Division Office, ng Regional Office, and even the Central Office during the collaborative expertise. Ika nga po, suportado ang teacher sa kanilang pagtuturo. So, nagiging matatag yung bata sa pagkuha niya ng lahat ng mga competencies dahil yung teacher muna na suportahan. Kapag ang teacher ay confident enough to teach the subject, nabanggit yan kanina po during the discussion, mas malaking bagay na lahat ng competency maituturo niya talaga sa bata. At yung for the week na dati-rati, may mga hindi talaga natatapos. Ngayon, dahil sa collaborative expertise, they will make sure yung competency for the week ay talagang makukumpleto. So yun po yung isang napakagandang feature noon. At ang maganda rin po dito, yung mga resources provided. Present naman po yung mga dating mga libro at yung mga learning mga modules, mga video lessons. So nagagamit pa rin po yun ng teacher. At kung sakaling may disruption of classes, malaking bagay yung collaborative expertise. So ano yung araw na wala ng pasok because of some typhoons or other mga kagaya ng strikes. So malaking tulong po na may kasuporta ang guro sa pagtuturo, kaya mas confident at mahusay niyang naibibigay yung lahat ng lessons na dapat na matutunan ng bata. That's all po. And we have also with us our district supervisor, and at the same time our OIC principal of Muson Elementary School, together with the SDO team of Malabon. We have our ASDS and our CID chief and our supervisors also. Thank you po.
Thank you. Just a few questions, no, to anyone who can answer. I think I'll go to the basics, no, because yung accusation or analysis in the past is congested in curriculum, and then the teachers don't have ample time to teach on the competencies. No? So ngayon, dinecongest na siya by 70%. So what's the experience of our teachers? Anong kanilang on the ground? Kasi the teachers, sila yung nagtuturo eh. No? So sila yung mas nakaka-experience ng hirap o ginhawa. No? So from that point of view, anong experience ngayon ng ating mga teachers in this new curriculum?
Good afternoon po, Your Honor and Senator Pimentel. Base po sa encounter ko with the teachers, because it's a collaborative po naman. At the beginning po, there's a certain adjustment because on the 2 weeks na transitional po yung ating teachers and the same time yung estudyante, we had before a orientation among the parents just to know that there are some changes po sa schedule. So after being informed, then we proceed po dun sa transitional. This transitional stage po ay ihanda po namin yung mga estudyante sa sinasabi nating matatag curriculum. Now, we're on the 4th week po. Ang nangyayari po, daily as a function, as a school head po right now, I involve myself directly po. Kinakausap ko yung kinder. I have 3 teachers in kinder, and in grade 1, 2 rather in kinder, then in grade 1 po, 3, and grade 4, 3. So, based on the school, on the 5 schools that Malabon have, akin po yung pinaka-smallest po. So, what happens that I was able to meet them daily. So, ano po ba basic problems that they encountered? Surely the adjustment po, the time, because they have to make certain adjustment since nag-extend po konti yung ating grade 4. Then, because of that, naman po, natugunan. But when look into yung sinasabi po nating loading, they more appreciate po ang mga teachers kasi they able to teach well around 1 to 2 competency per week. And I also asked the feedback coming from the teachers, okay ba sa mga estudyante? Medyo ano na lang po is because of the sinasabi po nating pilot, so yung mga worksheets po are being tested for the students. So, minsan po ang nakikita medyo marami. So sabi ko, bakit marami? Because this is the prescribed, we're going to test these worksheets. So sabi ko, ano ginagawa ninyo? So they told me na they're going to extend it. So okay naman ba to sa mga bata? Sabi naman, okay naman po. So they're able to render this kind of yung mga activities that the student will end up mastering the subject matter po. Yun po.
Paano ba ito nagka-function? Kunyari sa grade level, merong grade 1 mathematics, let's say 120 competencies. Ano yan? Parang isi-checklist ninyo yan. That before the school year ends, dapat naituro na ninyo at dapat na-test ninyo na alam na nila. And then pag sinabi kong nila, it cannot be 100%, but what percentage of nila? Kaya ito yung mga realities on the ground.
Meron po tinatawag po ng budget of work, naka-allotted po per quarter. So with the coordination po with the education supervisor po, every week it will be monitored po. So from the activities, lesser exemplar being given by the central office po, and will go to the regional, it will pass to the division office po. And that's the time po, every Friday, we have the collaborative po. So they talk about the lessons and activity sheets, then what transpired during the week, they collaborate po. There are some shortcomings, the supervisor and also among the teachers themselves give some exchange ideas po kung ano ba naging problema.
Okay yan, yan yung mga ginagawa ninyo. Pero on the curriculum side nga, basta gano'n, in a certain grade level for math, 120 competencies, you make sure that in the 180 to 200 days of school year, maituro ninyo yan. Okay.
Yes po.
Okay, but what is it only maituro o dapat pumasok sa kokote ng learners ninyo?
Mastery.
How do we measure that? And then, I'm sure it cannot be 100% mastered by the entire class. What percentage will make us happy?
Kasi meron po daily, meron silang formative that we give feedback in daily encounter. Pagturo po si teachers and also will be reflected on their activity sheets. If the teacher will give these activity sheets po, so makikita ng teacher kung meron ng gain knowledge, skills, and attitude. So by then po, merong immediately feedback. This formative assessment naman po, recorded but not graded. So after that series po, ayon sa DepEd order, this coming October 26-27, we'll be holding our first quarter po, periodic test. Yun po.
And how large is the class size?
For me, it's a small school po. It's very ideal po, parang private and the thing. So we
Ilan na? Ilan? Example lang.
For example po,
40?
no po, sir. Mababa.
Less pa,
Because
okay. Sige.
meron pong minimum and maximum. So kinder will be 25, correct me if I'm wrong po,
Sige.
25 to 30. So roughly kasi we have a problem sa enrollment kasi yung our school is quite small rin po and parang isolated siya. So roughly we're around 24.
Okay, hindi so medyo hindi ito representative of the, what's in the usual class, kanyari in a city, city na lang, example lang city, 50 students to class? 45 to 50, o sige na lang natin, okay. So you teach your subject, okay, you assess your students.
Yes po.
What percentage will make the teacher happy that he has successfully taught his or her students? Sa 50 students na yon, ano percentage?
I think, sabi nga po, it's not the pagpapasa, but how the student able to inculcate po yung learning. So it's a matter of...
Hindi, sinusukat dapat yan.
Yes,
Dapat may
opo.
sukat yan.
Yes
Kaya
po.
tanong ko, paano sinukat? Let's say assessment, graded or not
Yes po.
graded. Wala na akong pakialam kung graded or not graded. But
Roughly,
I am sure it's not
75.
100% na all of your
75.
students master the 120 competencies. Imposible yun.
Opo.
Maybe in your class, but not nationwide.
Yes po.
Okay. Anong goal ng DepEd? How much percentage must at least
75.
75% of your class must at least be competent in the 100 plus competencies that you teach in 180 days. Ganun. More or less, ganun.
Yes,
Ganun,
po.
more or less ang usapan. Ganun. Okay. And you measure that.
Yes po.
Okay. Quarterly. Yung sabi mo, para makita mo yung progress.
Yes
Tama?
po.
That is DepEd, that is DepEd standard, ha? But you measure it quarterly. Okay. Then dito na pumasok yung bill ni Senator Win na those lagging behind, gusto niya may intervention
Yes
para
po,
na mahila na.
We have
That's the point,
remedial
di ba?
classes po.
Oh, and it's not, and you know that they're lagging behind, not too late in the year, di ba? Because quarterly. Yan
Yes,
ang point. Okay. So I hope the theory works in practice. Yan ang
Yes.
aking point.
Yes, sir. Those that are falling through the cracks early on are given, especially during the 5th week of the quarter, we already know, the teachers already know that they need to give intervention, in whatever form, so that the student can be helped. And this does not just involve the teacher and student, it involves the family as well, so that the home can also participate in ensuring that the students are helped. It's in our DepEd order. And from...
Nice theory, pero siyempre alam niya na yan eh. Good in theory. Siyempre, pinasa na nga sa inyo yung bata para turuan eh. Pero, is the home participation indispensable to the improvement of the child? Doon kayo dependent at kung magkapalpakan yung child, you have tuturo natin yung home. Kaya dapat within the school nag-i-improve na siya.
Yes. Well, studies...
How many hours does a student spend in school?
6 hours at the least.
So those 6 hours must not be wasted hours.
Tama po.
So even if it's not complemented by home study or home tutoring, Dapat nasusukat natin ang improvement ng bata sa 6 hours niya sa school.
Yes po,
dapat yan.
Sir, just of course to emphasize that there's something very positive with homeschool partnership. That's just what I'm trying to say. But even without the support of the home, the school can still be successful given the right interventions and motivation.
Or retain that on the paper, on the theory, retain yun yan. Pero dapat siyempre, you must succeed even if the home is uncooperative. Yan ang point ko. Pero in theory, tama yan. Encourage the home to be involved. Kasi sabi, alis nga. Pero dapat gano'n, ha? I mean, dapat gano'n tayo. 6 hours na binigay yung bata sa atin, eh. Under our care, eh. Yes, ma'am. Opo.
Good afternoon po, Senator Pimentel. Napakita po kanina na decongest talaga. Kagaya po ng sa grade 1, from 7 subjects, naging 5 sila. Dati yung 7 subjects, lahat yun kinukuha ng bata sa 6 to 12 niya. Ngayon, kasama na po yung remedial instruction doon sa pagtigil ng bata, na dati hindi. Kasi nga, full pack ng subjects yung bata. So sa halip na uuwi ang bata or mag-extend si teacher ng remedial instructions ay may next batch na ng tuturuan. So, during the stay ng bata sa school, nagkakaroon na po ng remedial instructions. Meron din pong time talaga sa pagpapabasa. Yun talagang dapat na itututok ng teacher na hindi yung subject area lang yung ituturo niya, kundi focus dun sa needs ng bata. Yun po yung nangyayari sa remedial instructions. Kaya yung focus ngayon ay more talaga po sa literacy, yung foundational skills na kailangan at dapat na palakasin for the Matatag curriculum. Thank you po.
STS, I'll go back. I know that this is in the past, no? But I just want to understand. In the slide that we showed earlier, only 12%, for example, in grade 6, only 12% of our teachers managed to complete all the competencies. Nangyayari yan on the ground?
Yes po, nagkaroon po kami ng checklist kung ano yung hindi naituro, ano yung naituro pero hindi talaga na-master ng bata. Meron din namang naituro pero talagang hindi na-master. How much more yung hindi naituro? So the more na hindi naman ma-master ng bata. Marami po kasing dahilan yon. Siyempre, yung lahat ng kaabalahan ng mga bata, at siyempre yung mga preparation din ng teachers. Pero ngayon, dahil sa loob ng isang linggo, sa halip na 5 competent na walang mastery, ngayon, ang focus po talaga, mastery of the foundational skills muna. So yun po yung napakagandang feature ng Matatag curriculum. Pati si teacher, mas yung satisfaction niya na hindi yung paspasan ng turo para lang makover ng lahat ng competency. So ngayon, mas nakikita nila yung paano yung mas magiging approach, paano maipapasok ang critical thinking skills, the 21st century skills, instead of parang naghahabol tayo sa competency na dapat maituro. So mas nagiging creative si teacher ng kanyang mga approaches aside from yung nga pong collaborative expertise. More minds are better than one. So marami nagsishare kung ito, mahirap itong ituro ngayon sa mga batang ito dahil kailangan may marami munang pag-research si teacher. Hindi yung sa dami ng competency, pagod na si teacher ng paghahanap ng kung anong ituturo, magpiprepare pa siya ng mga activity sheets, samantalang po ngayon, soft copy and hard copy are given by DepEd. At yun po yung malaking tulong for the Matatag curriculum. So more na lamang po dun sa mga pilot implementers, focus kami kung how to really teach the lesson and how to ensure yung mastery talaga ng mga competencies na yon.
In the past, nangyayari na 1 competency per day.
Not necessarily naman po, depende po kasi
But on
yun
the
sa
average?
on the average
On the
po.
average.
Siguro po mga 4 in a week.
4 in a week.
At dun sa competency na yon, may pagkakataon pa na sinasub-competency pa yun ni teacher. Kasi yung may mga prerequisite skills na hindi siya agad pwedeng maituro dahil basic muna. Hindi mag-grasp ng bata yung lesson.
And
Kailangan
then tinuturo yun in 1 hour. Kasi per
Yes
subject
po.
is 1 hour.
In 1 hour po.
And
Lalo na,
tinuturo niya to 40 children, to 40 kids.
opo. Then halimbawa po yung mga kindergarten students, hindi yan halimbawa nag-daycare. Automatic kinder na yan. So wala pa silang prior knowledge. So yung competency nakareding ituturo. So napakahirap yon para kay teacher at kay student. Kaya ngayon, talagang hinimay na talagang matutunan kaya ng cognitive domain ng bata yung competency na dapat may turo sa kanya. Yung parang palalakasin muna po ang foundation skills, parang ipinakita ng sa Singapore, yun muna ang palalakasin kahit kaunti muna dun sa maliit. Kasi paano mag-higher thinking skills ang bata ay yung simpleng pagsasalita ay hindi niya nagagawa. Pagsusulat, pagbabasa ay hindi.
Narinig ko ngayon with in this pilot, in a week there are 2 competencies from 4 na reduced to 2. On the average, of course different subjects will have different.
On the average.
So in other words, mayroon na siyang extra time to emphasize and to do mastery. Okay.
Parang sa 200 days na ang 180 ay yung non-negotiable sa talagang dapat na ituturo. Kung may 120 competencies po dyan, so 180 versus 120, so mas malaking ano yun. Parang hindi naman ibig sabihin isang competency lang yung isang araw, kundi mas malaki yung ika nga ay period para ma-master yung competency. 120 over 180.
Teacher training, no? Of course, pilot to. And did you undergo teacher training? There are teachers?
Yes po, we had our teachers training, the Blue Lane, 3 days po yon. Participated not only by the teachers, but also by the department heads, supervisors, school heads, and with all the regional team and the central office team. So, hindi po si teacher lang ang involved. Lahat po kami, including us, ay kasama po doon. Ipinaliwanag ano ang matatag curriculum, paano ito ituturo, ano ang approach na dapat gawin sa pagtuturo dito. So talagang pagdating po sa training ay napakaganda ng naibigay nila. And not only that, yung support, yung laging may collaborative meeting din kami with the regional office and with the central office kung ano yung nangyayari.